Jobs as many as 400 are on the line here at the SABC. That's as management says it will press on with retrenchments plan. Unions representing workers, however, are at odds with these plans and are even threatening legal action to block retrenchments. For more on this story, we're joined by SAFTU's General Secretary, Zwelinzima Vavi. Very good evening to you, Mr. Vavi, and thank you so much for speaking to us. So you have seen the announcement of plans for a silent or Black Monday protest tomorrow. Are you generally in support of this as SAFTU?
No. We are absolutely against the push by the management to retrench so many workers, 400, and originally they had planned to slaughter 600 jobs at the SABC. And we have to look at this in the context of the ravages of job losses already underway everywhere else in the private sector. And in the second quarter, for example, we lost 2.2 million jobs. In the third quarter, we continue to lose hundreds and thousands of jobs. Unemployment have reached unprecedented levels. And it's tough times, in particular, at the SABC, and in all other state-owned enterprises. Unfortunately, SABC seems to be following exactly what is happening at SAA, SA Express, at Dinel, which also have issued a Section 189 to give a notice to the unions that they want to retrench workers. And unfortunately, workers are now bearing the brunt of many years of mismanagement, of cronyism and chronic capitalism in general. And now the people who were conducting that business on behalf of their own interest are sitting at home enjoying their millions, whilst workers are going to have to face a very bleak future. I'm told that the SABC staffers are absolutely stressful, and they have conducted us pleading for SAFTU and all other unions to support them. And we want to indicate that even though we do not have a big presence at SABC and SAFTU, but we are throwing our weight behind all of the workers who will be demonstrating tomorrow at 12:30. And we want to make a call on all workers who are free to please join the people who keep us informed as a public. The SABC is a very critical state-owned enterprise. We know everything that we know mostly as members of the public because of the work that journalists at SABC, people that you will never see, who do not sit in your face and you don't hear their voices at the radio stations, but make sure that we are better informed.
I want to ask you something about the spirit of these negotiations. The SABC has already sent out Section 189 notices. This movement that is protesting tomorrow calls itself Section 192, which provides proceedings concerning an alleged unfair dismissal of an employee, that the existence thereof must be established before the dismissal. Is this an apt name for Section 192? And just looking at the Labour Relations Act and how the SABC has interpreted the situation that it's in now?
I think the first problem in SABC is that the management is completely dishonest. Give an example. They had several discussions with myself and SAFTU about the difficulties that they are facing. And their main difficulty is what we call the 87% privately funded through adverts and only about the rest from the licenses and the mere 3% from the government. Surely that is unsustainable. They kept on telling us that this is the situation that they are facing, which we appreciate, and that's why we kept on making public calls on the government to implement the decisions of the ANC conference. The national conference have said that 3% must be increased to 60% so that the SABC can remain a public broadcaster which will advance the interest of the ordinary members of the public instead of leaning towards the interest of those who are funding it, which is in the private sector. And we believe that a number of the SABC programs already are leaning towards the interest of those who are pouring the millions for it to survive on a daily basis. And this is fundamentally wrong, because this is what is leading to the commercialization of a public institution.
And let me latch on to that, because the question has been raised that the direction, if you look at the structure that is being presented by the SABC, won't it take it away from its original mandate? And there's also the question of whether decreasing the number of staff will ultimately lead it to being self-efficient and long-term prosperity.
Absolutely. That's commercialization for you. That's neoliberalism at its work, and that's austerity. Government is refusing to come to the party because it dare not increase that 3% funding. The result of it is going to be that SABC's capacity is going to decline big time. I mean, if you just take willy-nilly 400 people who were on daily basis feeding the public with the news, and you just send them and throw them to the streets, what do you expect? The next thing that you're going to see is that there will be no journalists in the far outlying rural areas, which SABC is the only public institution that is currently covering, because it is a public institution which has a mandate to make sure that South Africa's total story, hopefully from our point of view, total story in terms of what is happening in all society and in its classes, can be brought to our evenings every day as we listen to the news. That capacity is going to be undermined. But let me just go back. We want to condemn SABC management because that is honest. They have gone through this process, and I see that they are joking about 6 consultations that they have had to go through with the unions. They were just ticking the box to make sure that they arrive at the point where they can now pull the trigger, basically. They met with us, and they're saying to us, look, somewhere in the future we may be forced to go into the direction of Section 189. We put it on record to say, you dare not do that. Let's fight together with you to make sure that we put pressure on the Treasury, on the government to release the resources. The very next day, having met with us a previous day, they issued a notice 189. And when we said to them, but guys, you were meeting with us yesterday, you don't tell us that you are planning to pull the trigger the very next day. You dishonestly telling us that somewhere in the future you may be forced to go down this route if there is no support for what you are trying to do, which is to increase the levels of funding by the public. And you don't do that, you pull the trigger on the workers. Dishonest management.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Vavi. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. That is SAFTU's General Secretary, Zwelinzima Vavi. The unions and workers and the SABC obviously still at loggerheads over this retrenchment at the public broadcaster. Coming up next, we turn our gaze towards the stars with Carmel Evers, who's the chairperson of the Astronomical Society of Southern Africa, on the Leonid meteor shower that will be visible until Tuesday. That's in the next hour. Some residents from Kutlwanong and